Saturday morning. It is November 4th, 2023. I want to welcome everybody back into the LTL True Crime Podcast. We are streaming live from the great state of Massachusetts. And I see that the chat is starting to fill in here. I hope everybody's having an amazing morning so far. We are switching up the schedule, trying to do some morning shows, and I will continue to do the evening shows as well too. But just trying to see what will happen here on the replay, what will happen here with that evil, I almost said evil algorithm, but I digress. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Brian Entin, and especially with his reporting on the Idaho murders. And he's done a phenomenal, in my opinion, a phenomenal job over this last year. And I just was looking back at some clips of him, where he has progressed along his way in reporting and journalism, and just how much he has grown. Because I always look back, I like to look back and just see, how much this channel has grown as well. And you all know I've played the first video that I ever posted on my channel up to what the modern day is now, to this very moment that we are live right now. And so much has changed. But I thought it'd be a great idea to go back and look at Brian's reporting to current day into when he first started reporting on the Idaho murders. What we're going to do here first, though, is we're going to pull up a video from Law and Crime Network that talked about the indictment hearing the other day, the in my opinion, the beatdown from judge to the defense, essentially kind of laughing at the history lesson that he got inside the courtroom during their hearing. And we'll pull this up here and go through this and just see what Law and Crime Network had to say about this. Feel free to chat on the right-hand side of the screen if you are live. If you're watching this on replay, make sure to comment down below, #replay. And today we are streaming across 3 platforms: X, YouTube, the home base here, and on Facebook Live. Here we go.
I'm going to set a deadline for all the information to be provided to the court by December 1st. That should be sufficient time.
The clock is ticking for prosecutors in the University of Idaho quadruple murders case as a judge implements a new deadline for the state to hand over DNA evidence to be used in the trial.
It seems like this is really just the beginning of the process.
In a last-minute hearing on Thursday, Judge John Judge gave accused murderer Brian Kohberger a win when he implemented a December 1st deadline. That means prosecutors have just under a month to turn over genetic genealogy and DNA evidence to the defense. Brian Entin, a senior national correspondent with NewsNation, was in the courtroom on Thursday. He tells Law and Crime Network the entire hearing centered around genetic evidence the defense is hoping to get its hands on.
Basically, the reports have to go to the judge first to review, there's a lot of confidential information that could possibly be in these reports because they involve like family trees of people who are totally unconnected to the case. So the judge has to review the reports first, and then we'll decide what to give to the defense. But the judge hasn't even gotten the reports yet. It came out in court today. The prosecutor said that they're still waiting on reports from the FBI. It's turning into this really long process. And so the new deadline for the judge to get the reports is now December 1st.
Now remember, DNA evidence is a big part of the state's case. That's how they tied Kohberger to the murders in the first place. Investigators used DNA from a knife sheath left behind at the crime scene to track down Kohberger. They compared DNA from Kohberger's father, gathered from his trash all the way in Pennsylvania, to that found on the sheath in Idaho. They quickly determined it was a match, and later investigators scored a near perfect match when a cheek swab from Kohberger himself was collected this summer. But as for the evidence discussed in Thursday's hearing, it's still a question mark. Did they give any specific examples?
I still hear arguments about this. I still hear arguments about this in my comment section. The bottom line is this. Whenever all this DNA gets sorted out, when all the proper paperwork gets turned over, when this all gets in the hands of the defense and in the prosecution, the bottom line is this, and I don't think people understand this. Brian Kohberger's confirmed DNA was found on a knife sheath on a bed with 2 dead victims, massacred victims. They're going to have to explain for that. How did it get there? And I'm telling you, I cannot wait. Hopefully, if this gets to trial, I cannot wait to hear the explanation. I am salivating at that moment. Absolutely salivating.
Examples of what this evidence could be?
No, they didn't get into specifics, but it's interesting because it's kind of like a new science. The judge today alluded in court to the fact that this hasn't been used in Idaho cases much before, maybe ever before. So it's new to him.
The other thing that people have to understand, and they don't understand this, I feel like I'm talking like Joe Biden today. But I think people have to understand. They've processed. I feel like Joe Biden today. They have processed all of those rooms, taking carpet swabs, taking swabs from the bed, the sheets, the comforter, the carpet, and processed all that. I'm going to tell you right now, the knife sheath DNA is not going to be the only DNA that is found in that room. There could be skin cells. There could be blood from an injury in that attack, a defensive injury. We don't know all of the evidence in this case, and I don't know why people cannot just come around to that. They just see what's reported in the media. They read the PCA and they go, this is all they've got on this guy. This guy is innocent. And yes, right now he is innocent until proven guilty or proven not guilty. Absolutely. But they're going to have to explain how that knife sheath got there with his DNA on it. And they're going to have to explain the cast information. I don't know why people just can't come around to this. They don't get it. I think this guy is fried. Bacon fried in a pan, fried eggs. And now there's rumors out there. I've heard reports and rumors that they have Brian Kohberger on camera in that neighborhood weeks before. There's video of it. Weeks before, sitting outside the house, driving around in that neighborhood, scouting out the house, driving by. So I think the walls are closing in here. And if I was an innocent guy accused of a quadruple homicide, I would be screaming from my cell every single day. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I would give every reporter exclusive access to interview me and tell my story. I didn't do it. But Brian hasn't done that. Brian has sat in silence. Brian has only spoken through his attorneys. I'm sorry. I'd be screaming at the top of my lungs.
And it's interesting. I mean, if you remember, basically they, when they found the DNA on the knife sheath at the murder scene, they then used this investigative genetic genealogy to go back, like, 23andMe and these companies where you give your DNA, they can get access to those databases. And that's how they narrowed down the suspect pool to get to Brian Kohberger.
It's been nearly 1 year since the 4 University of Idaho students were found brutally murdered. On November 13th of 2022, Moscow officials received a 911 call reporting someone unconscious in a home near campus. First responders found the bodies of Xana Kernodle, Entin Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez stabbed to death. It wasn't until weeks later in late December when Kohberger was arrested.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger
Wow, listen to the angst in
in
his voice.
Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murders of Entin, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee.
Kohberger was taken into custody at his parents' home in Pennsylvania and then later extradited to Idaho. Since then, he's been held at the Latah County Jail in Moscow, less than 2 miles from the crime scene. That's where he appeared virtually to Thursday's court hearing.
I couldn't see him, but he appeared via Zoom with his lawyer. The camera on the Zoom was focused on his lawyer and Taylor. They were in the basement below the courtroom, which is where the jail is. There's a small jail here in Latah County.
Did they make any mention as to why it was via Zoom and not in person if they were so close?
They've done this before with Zoom when it's more of a scheduling hearing and not something really significant. They'll do the hearing on Zoom, just I think more as convenience for all the parties involved.
We're already in the process of making sure we've gathered everything from the private contract DNA company. So we'll have that ready to submit along with what we receive from the FBI once we get it.
As part of the hearing, Entin says prosecutors noted they're working with both the FBI and a private lab to receive information.
It sounded like they were having an easier time getting the reports from the private lab, but the delay really seems to be with the FBI. The prosecutor said that before the FBI can send the report, they had to get permission from the DOJ. So it's just turning into like a really, really long process.
Does it sound like something prosecutors are confident can happen in less than a month, have all of these reports ready to go?
No, they did not sound that confident to me in court today. It sounds like they're, sort of at the mercy of the FBI. The prosecutor said that he was going to call the FBI again today and try to push them along, but they say that they're waiting on the FBI to send them the reports so that they can then send the reports to the judge.
When that information does finally come down, the judge will have to review it, and it's possible he could deem some of the information inadmissible.
In the order addressing IgG DNA. I also understand that the state and the defense have different lists. So I will look at it and I'll muddle through it as best I can.
He's going to have a lot to go through, the judge, to figure out if there is any confidential information that's basically irrelevant and that the defense doesn't need to see. I think it's possible that some of the stuff could be redacted. But again, this is all new for the judge. I mean, he said that today. It's complicated, this IgG, investigative genetic genealogy. He may even need like an expert.
Everybody think that maybe they're taking a while to make sure they get this right? Maybe they just want to make sure they get this right, that there's no fuck ups. They're dealing with a lot of sensitive information here. You ever think about that? Just making sure that we look everything over, cross our T's, dots our I's, not fuck this up. Because, this is really the case of the century, in my opinion. Let's get it right the first time. Let's get it right in the interest of the victims. Let's get it right in the interest of the defendant. Because if he didn't do this and the DNA evidence proves that he didn't do this, then he needs to go free. And then we still have a killer or killers out there that we need to be looking for. So let's get it right the first time.
Possibly help him understand it all. They may even need to have another hearing where he's able to ask.
Even the judge is having a hard time understanding this because it is so new. And that's why when a lot of this came out in the O.J. Simpson trial, the jurors didn't understand it because we never really heard much about DNA evidence back then. So to them, it was just a bunch of jargon when they heard the experts talk about it on the stand.
Questions. So it seems like this is really just the beginning of the process.
And we've also talked about the prosecution a lot here, talking about the information that they're hoping to gain from the FBI. But did the defense speak up at all about anything?
Yeah, the defense
You
is
agree?
frustrated. I mean, it came through today in court. They've been waiting on these reports.
And I think that's the problem, is that there are so many crime shows out there. You know, we're talking about this. I was listening to this on the radio the other day. I forget who was saying it, but they said that, you know, investigations in crimes take time. You know, when you watch something on a show, it is in an hour, you know, FCSI in an hour. They've already got the guy, it's locked up. They've gone to court. Bam, he's in jail for the rest of his life. You know, it doesn't work that way in a criminal investigation, nor should it ever. You should explore every single angle. You should explore every single piece of evidence. You should explore every single lead, whatever it may be. It doesn't happen that way. Things take time.
They feel like it's about time they got them and were able to go through them. And, you know, it's becoming clear that this IgG, this investigative genetic genealogy, this DNA, is something that's important to the defense. That's going to be probably a pivotal part of the defense that they put on at trial.
I'm hoping that the court will do is just create a list or a log of what the court receives, not the details.
No, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of the first time we saw Ann Taylor really straight on camera in court.
Content, but things like the raw data SNP profile from Othram, the communications between Othram and the FBI, not the content, just that you have those. The statistical analysis that happened within the profiles when making decisions, when the genealogists made decisions about the family tree, that you have the statistical analysis, that you have the bioinformatics for the microarray, that you have access to those things. That's it.
Meanwhile, just this week, FBI agents headed back to the scene of the crime to collect more information for the coming trial.
There's the conspiracy. What was the FBI doing there? Were they planting evidence? What were they doing? Were they setting this guy up? You know, you heard everything. You heard it all.
Yeah, we were
You
out
heard it
there.
all.
We saw the FBI going into the
You heard it
house.
all.
Kind of came as a surprise because, you know, we were under the assumption that they didn't need the house anymore. The prosecution had signed off on the house being demolished. The families of the victims fought that, and kind of came as a surprise when the FBI showed back up at the house. They were going in and out for 2 days. They did 3D imaging of the house, so they had specialized equipment that they went through each room to basically model. They had a drone up over the house. They took all the boards off of the house, and they were really busy for 2 days out there.
Agents spent October 31st and November 1st at the King Road home, collecting images and measurements for a 3D model to be used at trial. Former FBI agent Colin Schmidt told Long Crime Network the information will be invaluable to prosecutors.
This was such a horrific crime.
Oh, excuse me.
The prosecutors there, they want to get it right, and you only get one chance in front of a jury to get it right. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So they have this opportunity to put this evidence in front of the jury that is going to be absolute precise depiction of what happened, so the jury understands how horrific this was and how he did what he did, because there is quite a few questions about, well, how could he go in and do these things and the survivors didn't hear him or didn't understand or didn't step up and stop him from doing this. Well, this 3D model is going to show the jury, well, this is how he did it. This is how he was able to get away with doing these horrific things without anybody hearing him as he was basically executing his victims.
And it's still possible future jurors could visit the scene of the crime.
and I anticipate that's going
I
to
think it
happen.
should.
And there's going to be an argument by the defense not to see this 3D modeling before they walk through, because then the defense is going to say they're being biased by what the FBI's depiction or of the crime scene. So I'm sure the jurors are going to want to see what happened there. They're going to walk through. They're only going to see basically completely empty rooms. I mean, the carpet's going to be ripped up because the FBI is going to pull out of that carpet, take it back to the lab, and go through it with in a microscopic manner. So they're not, in my opinion, they're not going to get a lot of context from these empty rooms. I think the 3D modeling is going to give them a lot more context. But I anticipate that even though
I wonder how many
there's
much one of
going
those
to be
machines
argument
cost.
why you're not going to get anything out. I think the jurors will
look.
still want to go just to see, just in their own mind, hey, what really happened?
But it still remains to be seen when that would happen. And talking about the trial being delayed, I mean, indefinitely, was there any mention at all today in court about when a date could be set?
Holy shit.
No, they didn't talk at all about a trial date.
So Pharaoh machine says, what is a typical Pharaoh? Just the arm of it costs. New units without options started at approximately 22,000 and may go up to 60,000 for the largest probe only systems. Wow. That could be $100,000 machine there. Jeez, man. It's crazy.
And my sense was, I mean, with this whole genetic genealogy and the delay in getting the reports, now the DOJ being involved, I mean, this just shows how big of a delay it could be until they finally get to a trial, because there's so many little steps that still have to happen in between.
Meanwhile, the first anniversary of the gruesome murders is just around the corner. We're approaching the 1-year mark here. On the ground in Moscow, what is the feeling? Are people realizing that this is really a year anniversary coming up?
Yeah, I think people are still sort of processing everything. For a lot of people, they say it almost feels like longer than a year because so much has
Yeah, it
happened
does
over the
feel
last year with
longer
all
than a
the
year.
court proceedings, and there's just so much emotion involved. So I think most of the people that we've spoken to here in Moscow sort of want the trial to happen sooner than later. They want to be able to put this nightmare behind them. I mean, this is just a
So
really
much.
quaint small college town. Nothing like this has ever happened here. There's barely even any crime at all. So I think they're anxious for the trial. They're upset that it was delayed, and they just want to be able to put this behind them.
In Thursday's hearing,
All right. Let's go back to more reporting from Brian. The thing that I really want to look at is I'm probably pretty sure that once, this concludes, I could see Brian writing a book about this. I mean, he's done so much reporting. I would love to see what his notes look like on this case. And I'm pretty sure he's going to put some type of, I don't know if they call it like a memoir. I think that's when you do your whole life, but definitely document this whole situation and write a book. I would love to see that. Brian for me is a very huge inspiration. I think that has very straightforward journalism. There's no bullshit about him. I don't feel that he's ever sketchy when he reports. And he's really one of those people that I love that is boots on the ground, is not afraid to do anything, and is very, I guess, personable and likable on camera. And I think he has that kind of certain charm about him. And I look at his reporting and I study his reporting and try to I wouldn't say like emulate it, but it's definitely an inspiration of mine. And it's great to see how much he's evolved in a year. And that's kind of the purpose of why I want to do this today. He's evolved so much, and again, has just been a huge inspiration for this channel. Absolutely. And maybe I have the opportunity someday to talk to him. I think that would be really cool. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk about Brian actually did another update. Excuse me, another update with the Gonzalez family. Danielle, thank you so much for the $4.99. She says, keep up the good work, Brian. Danielle, I got your text. I'm sorry, I just haven't had time to respond. I've been so busy, but it's nice to see you here in the chat. And thank you for being here. And I thank you. Appreciate you for the $4.99. So let's go to Brian's reporting. You got another opportunity. The most recent opportunity to speak with the Gonzalez family, and we'll hear what they had to say after a very crazy I would say, couple of weeks in this case. You know, we had the indictment that was going to be challenged. That has been thrown out. We've had DNA evidence that's going to be challenged. That's being a major decision. The FBI was back at the King Road house the other day. I mean, I can only imagine the emotions that the Gonzalez family is truly going through here. And let's hear what Brian had talked with them about.
10 days from now is November 13th, and that is 1 year ago. It is the date when the world came to a halt for a university town in Idaho. But the world really just stopped completely, just changed forever for the families of 4 students there. Their parents had shipped them off to college, but these 4 kids were savagely murdered within just a few months of school starting. And the house was just off campus. It is still right there, just off campus, boarded up like a frightening scar. 1122 King Road. The school, the prosecutors, even the defense wanted the house torn down as soon as possible. But some of the families didn't, and they fought it. And it's a good thing they did, because this week, prosecutors and the FBI were back there inside, clipboards in hand. NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Entin sat down with the parents.
Really weird, man. They did that on Halloween. That's just, it's really weird.
Haley Gonzalez, a victim of that crime.
Ashley, this has obviously been a difficult time for the victims' families in Idaho, the Goncalves family included. They say it's difficult to grieve when the court process is ongoing, and frustrating for them because it's been so delayed. They did have a bit of a victory, though, they feel. You remember they fought to keep the house where the murders happened standing. The University of Idaho wanted to tear the house down. The Goncalves family fought it. The house ultimately was not torn down, and it turns out the FBI has now gone back out to the house. We reported on it this week. They went back out to the house to do 3D imaging. I spoke to the Goncalveses about that, and also just about the court process and what they want to see happen in general.
I knew in my heart what was best for those girls and Ethan. I knew what was best was to keep that around until they did more.
God, do they look tired, man? Whew. This poor family.
And there'll be a point when I'll be like, you know what? Let it go. Let it go.
And our agenda of keeping it around isn't because, well, you know, oh, it's going to be so sad when it's torn down. I mean, that is going to be sad to me. And people think, how can that, like, tear it down? And it's just like, look, like, my daughter lived a happy life there. Yes, she was murdered there, ultimately murdered, but that was this much time. You know, we have pictures of them in the house. When that house goes, it's going to be hard. I don't want to go in it. I've never even been to.
You know, it's the thing is, it's the last standing unfortunate memory of her daughter. So she's going to feel, and I understand, I think, where she's coming from this. You have all those good memories in there. Like she said, she went there to live. She had a good time in there. There were photos, they were laughing. But then you have this horrific situation that happened. And that's what she's trying to erase. She doesn't want to erase. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of speaking for Christy here, and I shouldn't be. I'm just making my opinion. She doesn't want to erase the good times in there. And I think that she feels that once that house comes down, everything that happened leading up to her death will be gone. It's just erased and it's gone away. And I can understand that. It's going to be very, very tough. Let's go back just a little bit and listen to Christy again.
And Ethan, I knew what was best was to keep that around.
Hopefully my synopsis made some sense. And again, I'm just giving you my opinion.
Until they did more. And there'll be a point when I'll be like, you know what? Let it go. Let it go.
And our agenda of keeping it around isn't because, well, you know, oh, it's going to be so sad when it's torn down. I mean, that is going to be sad to me. And people think, how can that, like, tear it down? And it's just like, look, like, my daughter lived a happy life there. Yes, she was murdered there, ultimately murdered, but that was this much time. You know, we have pictures of them in the house. When that house goes, it's going to be hard. I I don't want to go in it. I've never even been to the house. I've never drove by it. I don't want to, but it's still going to be when they're like, that house is gone. It is going to be very emotional for me. But that wasn't why the emotional side of things. It was strictly like, is this good for the prosecution? Is this good for the case?
If he pled guilty and said, I'll plead guilty in exchange for a life sentence, have you thought about that?
Yeah, I don't want that because I do know I studied the criminal system and the difference between life and prison. Even if it's 20, 30 years, he's 23 hours locked up. He doesn't get to do what is it, BTK?
BTK killer?
PTK.
Or whatever.
We've found out that he writes papers for other prisoners and gets treated really well because he's intelligent and he's able to help other prisoners get preferential treatment through the legal system. We don't want that type of behavior to happen in our case where he has influence outside of this event. So
that's been a hard one, though. I mean,
he could write a book. He can do things. Idaho doesn't have a law particular that protects against that.
The hard thing with this,
I wonder if he thought about all that stuff. You know, it's interesting to hear the Gonzalez's talk about that. You know, knowing that you would be able to write a book from prison. I wonder if he thought about all this stuff. I wonder if any of that will come out in evidence. You know, maybe his searches that are on his computer or documents that he had inside his house, maybe notes that he wrote. You know, if we think that he did plan all this out, maybe he has all that. It'd be interesting to see if it comes out in evidence.
Question, honestly, is that's where you forget, and I don't know how it's possible, but you forget that there's 3 other families involved here.
I think that, you know, if we get to trial, we start hearing all the evidence in this. I think your mouth is going to drop on the floor of how much stuff there is. I really do.
We're not the only ones. You know, it's not just, I'm like, this is not a one, you know,
one crime fix all.
This is
right.
This isn't just our daughter.
Right. Some
and
might
I know
not
that
want to go through the trial.
I know some of the other families definitely would be, yes, like, let's go. Where do I sign? And I understand that 100%. 100% I understand that. But you know what? Ultimately, it's not our call. I mean, they might ask us our opinion like they did on the death penalty, and we'll give it. But just because, you know, our opinion is yay or nay doesn't mean that, you know, that's what we get.
The Goncalves parents have said that they are for the death penalty in the Brian Kohberger case. But again, it's just frustrating for them how long all of this is taking. They have to take vacation days and plan their whole life with work around when these court hearings happen. And many times the hearings pop up at the last minute. This all while they continue to try and grieve for Christy, Kaylee's mom. She says that it's difficult for her to go through Kaylee's things and to go into her bedroom.
But I've only been up to Kaylee's room. I mean, it's right up there, right at the top of the stairs. I've only been up there twice. And neither time was for any amount of time. It was like in and out. Oops, in, out. That's all we have. That is it. You know? And it's just real. It's just so real sometimes. And it's just the worst that somebody could do this to somebody's family. So many families.
The Goncalves family really is just so strong despite everything that they've been through. Obviously, this is an especially difficult time with the 1-year mark of the murders coming up on November 13th.
Thank you for watching.
All right. Thank you for watching News Nation. All right, let's go back and look at some of Brian's reporting right from the start. They were doing these kind of answering viewers' questions. This goes back to November 28th, 2022. And let's just take a look here. How much Brian has grown. It's interesting.
Welcome back.
In
We
a
get
year.
questions every day from viewers who want to know what happened that terrible night in Idaho when 4 college kids were stabbed to death as they slept. And how is it that 2 weeks later, police seem to be so stumped? Here again to field some of those questions is my News Nation colleague, Brian Entin. And Brian, I want to start, if I can, with Cassandra, who asks on Twitter, has the investigation checked all of the ERs and the urgent care centers for a suspect looking for possible treatment? Also, check local pharmacies for someone buying items to cover their wounds. It's a good question.
It is a good question. I would imagine so. You know, that's something that several students brought up to me on campus today. We were talking about who the killer could possibly be, and they asked me, could this person be injured? Could they be laying low somewhere? I mean, we know this was a brutal killing, stabbing of 4 people. That some
How
of
young he
those
looks.
victims may have fought
It's funny.
back. So it's certainly something very, very possible. It's a good question.
So Lindsay on Twitter asks this question, Brian, can law enforcement say publicly that there are no suspects when in fact there really are, as a way to fool any persons of interest or suspects?
They could, and you might be able to answer this better than me, Ashley. They could. It could be an investigative tactic. I'm sure they know things that they're not telling us. Would they actually hold back something huge at the risk of really upsetting this community that is so on edge right now? I find that sort of unlikely.
Yeah, it's a really interesting prospect and a great question from Lindsay. And the truth is, police can lie. They are allowed to lie. When they're interrogating someone, they can say, your sister just told us in the other room you're the killer. And that could be a complete lie, and it's allowed. But then releasing to the public, nothing to see here, you're all fine, everything's okay, when in fact it's not true. That's not something that they're prone to do. If there's a risk to the public, they will tell the public. Otherwise, it can be a calamitous result. Welcome back. I'm still with Brian Entin. And Brian, this viewer question caught our eye. Angela wants to know about the frat party that Ethan and Xana attended on the night of their deaths. Have a listen.
Hi, Brian. I'm Angela, and I am from Chicago. So my question is, why were the police called to the party that Ethan and Xana were at? Do you think that this has anything to do with the crime? And if so, what? Do you think that maybe they got into a fight or that somebody was mad at them? Does anybody have any more information on this?
All right. Thank you, Angela. Appreciate that. Brian, I actually didn't know that the police had been called to that frat party. Do we know anything more about it?
We don't know much. We don't know any of the details. We know that there are reports that the police were at the frat party. It really could have been anything. It may have had nothing to do with them, with the 2 victims. It could have been something totally unrelated. I will tell you this, though, going to the fraternities and sororities today, trying to get them to talk, it's not easy right now. They've been told not to talk to the media and only to talk to the police.
Not surprised. I got 40 seconds left. Megan on Twitter asks, question for you, Brian. Do you intend to request interviews with the local, state, or federal PIOs while you're there? With the journalistic respect you've come to earn, I think you would get more out of them.
Yes, we're trying. We've got some interviews set up for tomorrow. We're hoping to get new details that will really push this entire investigation ahead tomorrow. So you have to stay tuned. We'll have it tomorrow night for you, Ashley.
I knew you would have that the minute you got there. We're looking forward to that. Brian Entin, great work. Thank you for that tonight. We look forward to doing more of this tomorrow as well. And thank you all as well. I want to just let you know that Chris Cuomo is...
Okay, let's go again. More from the scene. This is back in November 29th. So the very next day, Brian Entin reporting again and again. It's just so funny to see how much he's grown so far just in a year of reporting on this.
All right, thank you, Chris Cuomo. And Brian Entin is back with me. Brian, I have a couple of questions, and I'm going to start with one question. And as you show me the answer, I'm going to launch into the second question. The first one comes from Chanel732 on Twitter, who asks this: is there an officer watching the backside of the house where you are tonight? And I don't know if you've got the freedom to show us around, but if you can, get on the move. And I'm going to ask you the second question while you're able to show us. Or are you there right now? Are you at the back?
Yeah. I'll show you real quick. This is the front. You can see the police officer, and I'm going to walk you to the back. If you want to go to the second question, we'll walk to the back.
Yeah, the second question's from Blink Twice for me on Twitter, and that person says, I saw police canine at the scene, but I haven't seen any news indicating what a dog was used for. Was a dog used at all to try to track where the killer went when he left the house, which is, another good reason to be walking to the back of the house where you are.
Okay, first of all, let me show you. This is the back of the house. They've got the crime scene tape up here, but there is no police guard or police car guard.
It's crazy, standing up, I guess, on that road, how level you would be with the, that back deck. It's like almost right at eye view. It's crazy. I mean, anybody could literally go there and stand right in that position and just look into that window forever, and you wouldn't even know.
Anything. And by the way, there's this big parking lot back here, which I found interesting the whole time we've been here, that this exists right behind the house. As far as the canine, the dog, I haven't seen any dogs out here early on. They may have used a dog to try to track someone in the backyard here, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. This next question comes from Dylan on Twitter. If there's been $1 million provided in the efforts to solve this crime, that came from the state, why has no reward money been offered? Why would they wait, or would they wait for any DNA lab results to come back with no matches and then announce a reward for information? At what point do they decide to announce a reward in a case?
Good question. I asked the police that today. They said they're still getting a lot of tips right now, so they don't feel the need for a reward. But if things slow down and they don't make progress, a reward could be coming in the future.
Okay, this next one is from Still Believe in Hope on Twitter. And they ask regarding social media. It's a good question considering our last segment. What is the law with regard to social media? Can the FBI get information from Meta, Instagram, Snapchat, which IP addresses looked at the last few photos or posts before the murders? Meaning, users can't see if someone visits a page or looks at a picture, but Meta can. IPs that stalked their pages.
I think it's possible. You would know better than me, Ashley, but I would think they would need a subpoena, correct, in a situation like that?
Yes, very often. And early, sort of in the digital revolution, it was very, very difficult even to get passwords from like Apple to open a phone in a criminal investigation, but they've sorted through a lot of that. And a subpoena usually does the trick. And there is more information than you can imagine on a digital popcorn trail. Thank you for
100%.
watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Go to newsnation. Nation. All right, let's see, how much more time do I have? About 15 minutes. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go back to Brian Entin again, reporting, tracing the steps of the possible routes the killer may have took. What do you think?
Little is known about how he got in or how he got out, which direction he came from, or how he escaped. There are only so many scenarios, and tonight we're going to give you an exclusive look. First, our senior national correspondent, Brian Entin, retracing the route that the killer would have to have taken if he drove that night to 1122 King Road.
So we're on Taylor Avenue right now. This is sort of a somewhat busy road between the Sigma Chi fraternity and where the murder house happened. There's a lot of apartment buildings, houses, a lot of kids going to and from. And then you turn onto this road here, which is King Road. This is actually the road that the house is on. I want to show you because it's dark out, so it's good perspective. But there's houses all over the place, both sides of the street here, lights on. You see students coming and going all the time, walking around. Not a quiet place by any means, even at night. A lot of snow, dark in some areas, but a lot of traffic. I turn here, we're going to get close to the murder house up here on the right, but you can see houses on both sides of the street again. There's media out here now, but again, normally the neighbors tell me there's a lot of people walking around, not necessarily a lot of cars. You look to the right here, this is the house where the murders happened. Big driveway in front, room for a lot of cars. I'm going to kind of get a little speed here because it's very snowy and icy. People have to go fast to get up the road. But right when you come around the corner here next to the house where the murders happened, there's a big apartment building on the left with at least 20 or 30 units. So again, a lot of people coming and going. Remind you, house where the murder happened is on the right here. And then we come up, I find this very, very interesting. This is a big parking lot, literally right behind the house where the murders happened. This would be a place where, look, I got stuck here. I was telling you, the snow, it's hard to get up these. Let me see if I can get up. All right, I'm stuck. I'm going to stop for a minute, though. Parking lot, this is a place where someone could have stopped to come and go from the back of the house. A little bit wooded here. behind the parking lot, but right on the top of that hill. It's not like a forest or anything. There's more houses up there. So this isn't like an area where there'd be a ton of places to hide. Again, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of apartments, a lot of houses. This is how you would have gotten in or out in a car. I'm going to show you at the end of the show more of how someone might get in or out on foot. Ashley?
That's just fantastic information, Brian. Thank you for that. And thank you for watching.
All right. One more video with Brian, again, talking about retracing the steps, what possibly could have been. Here we go.
The house behind me that you've seen so much of. This is the house where the murders happened. Crazy that it's now been 37 days. We want to show you what it would be like driving out of here. Keep in mind, it's light out now. It's snowy. It wasn't snowy when the murders happened. But we want to show you what it would be like driving out of here. Everything on both sides of the car, and all the chances that the person may have been seen leaving the house. Again, keep in mind, different vibe in the middle of the night. So come down this way. This is a little alleyway in front of the house. You can see there's houses on both sides.
Cameras everywhere.
Buildings. Scoop between these two cars here. These are reporters. Turn out here. Most of these are students that live in this area. That's the Sigma Chi house.
Camera
right
there.
in front of us, Ashley. And then this is Taylor Ave.
Camera there.
Turn on Taylor Ave here. Sigma Chi house. Band Field, which we've talked about, where that body camera video came with the kids who were drinking. That's Band Field on the left. On the right, look at all these apartment buildings.
Spotted there. Camera there.
Ton of apartment buildings on the right. Remember, there's one building where we found out they gave up video. They had a camera that was pointing down towards Taylor Ave. More townhouses. The university is on the left. Student housing is on the right. I told you, it's dense over here. I mean, it's not, like a wooded area along these roads. You've got a lot of houses and a lot of students that live in this area. A lot of snow now too, by the way. Again, remember, it wasn't like this when the murders happened. There wasn't really any snow. There's been so much snow the last couple of days. Gets a little more woodsy in this direction as we continue down Taylor Ave. And then right up here is the intersection with 95, which is sort of the main drag that goes through Moscow. So you've got the 76 gas station and the A&W on the right here. You remember, we confirmed that police got video from that gas station.
Of Jennifer Coffindaffer, if you haven't seen, I did an interview with Jennifer Coffindaffer, and there's the link right there. You can watch it after this if you'd like. But that was quite a few months ago. All right, let's keep playing through this.
Busy gas station. And then this is Highway 95, sort of the main drag. If you go right here,
I agree.
It kind of gets rural out there. It goes right outside of town. If you go left, which we'll go left, I want to show you how much action there is over here.
Camera there.
Again, busy.
Hey, Ron, how are you?
Good a camera right there, I noticed, at that apartment
camera
building,
there.
Facing the road. And then University of Idaho on the left. Stores, you've got a Pizza Hut here. You've got more student housing here on the right. And it's busy. I mean, granted, 3 a.m, it wouldn't be busy down here, but there
was no snow.
A lot of stuff going on. And if you keep going straight in this direction, you basically hit downtown. You go through sort of another busy area, and then you would be sort of back on rural highway on the other side. But this sort of gives you an idea of what it would be like driving out of that area and just how much there is around. I mean, I know people think that Moscow, small town, and it is, but it's packed in here. It's dense. Apartment buildings, houses, businesses.
Like, I used to date this girl that went to Virginia Tech, and like, you are literally in the mountains there. I mean, you fly in on a little puddle jumper plane when you go visit. And you think you're in the middle of nowhere, but that it's a huge college town. There's tons of things around there. It's all packed into that town. That's how these small, somewhat college towns are. Everything is packed around. You can see. I mean, this is just like a mile up the road. Look at all the businesses that are up there. There's food. There's everything.
And a number of cameras that do point at the roads.
It's everywhere.
So an interesting look. Hopefully that sheds some perspective. And obviously we don't know which way the killer went. If he went in that direction, I think a big difference maker would be if he made a right at that gas station the way we didn't go. Ashley, it gets very rural very quickly. There's a school out there, like an elementary school, but not a lot of cameras, not a lot of houses, not a lot of businesses. The way we went to the left, though, that would mean the killer went right through town.
So fascinating. I mean, I had no idea. That took 3 minutes and 40 seconds for you to get from the scene of the murder. Basically, you could have
Out
been
into
headed
that
out of
area.
town. That was
Yep.
so quick, and I didn't realize it was that compact. Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNation now.
All right. So, very limited stream this morning. I'm just trying to mix these up, doing some different morning and night shows. I will not be streaming tonight. Maybe I do a members only when I get home. It might be late night. Not too sure on that, but I'm going to put something together hopefully for Sunday night, and we'll be back on Sunday night. But I'm hoping that everybody's enjoying kind of the mixing the days and nights. I just want to see what the reaction is in the algorithm. That's been my biggest challenge right now, to continue to get this channel out there. And if you look right now, we're at 11,915. We're 75 people away, subscribers away from the big 12,000. So that would be a huge achievement here if we can do that. And I have to update my board. I have to put LTL True Crime Podcast. I don't know how the hell I'm going to fit it on there. Have no idea. Maybe we'll just do the initials, but I like the big board. The big board is motivation. It keeps things going, keeps things motivated. I just want to point everybody's attention before I head off air today. There's a very, very important video that I would love you to all watch, and that has to do with a case that I'm taking near and dear to my heart. If you're first over here on this channel and haven't seen me reporting on it, is there's a missing young lady that disappeared in Williams, Arizona, on a cross-country trip across from the West Coast to the East Coast. Her name is Chelsea Grimm. And I dropped a video yesterday of all the interviews that I've put together of people and friends and acquaintances that are very close to that case. And it was a really great video. It's getting a lot of love in the algorithm right now. If I look at it this morning, let's see, I got about 730 views on it. Click-through rate is really good. Average view duration is about 20 minutes. So people do care about the video. But I need you to keep going over and pushing that video. It's very, very important that we get that out there. It's very important that we get that out there. And if you haven't heard about this case, I encourage you to go to my homepage and click on Chelsea Grimm disappearance. And I will continue to report on her case until Chelsea comes home. I don't know what the frequency of the videos that I will do, but I will continue to keep this out there in the algorithm, in the media, because it's important. It's important that we find Chelsea and bring Chelsea home. There's a lot of people that do care about her. And there's a lot of people wondering what has happened or where she is. So I encourage you, friends, if you're watching my podcast for the first time today, to look up Chelsea Grimm, Grimm. And I'm just afraid at this point that that case, the reporting on it, is at a dead stop. And that's not good. We need to continue. So everybody have an amazing day. Thank you all for joining the LTL True Crime Podcast. My name is Brian. I'll be back here soon with another live. And please, first time over here, go to my homepage, check out my videos, subscribe, like, share my content. We broadcast on 3 different platforms today: Facebook, YouTube, the home base here, and on Twitter. I will see you all soon. Everybody have an amazing day. Take care. Bye.